You got me? Oh, there we go. All right. Well, welcome in, whether you are in the room with us or apparently streaming live on YouTube right now. We're excited to have you in with us. We love the opportunity for our founders to tell stories. You may have seen recently, if you follow our LinkedIn or you follow Generator's LinkedIn, Dr. Valencia Bell had a great conversation with one of the co-founders of Generator. And that got a lot of views on that. It was really exciting. Yeah, it was pretty exciting to see. So what we want to do here today is just give an opportunity for people to hear and learn a little bit about the gBETA program, about your experience, and really understanding and have an opportunity to ask questions. So real quick as a backdrop, Generator is an international venture capital firm and programming accelerator. And what does that mean? That's some big words. It can sound pretty crazy out there. What they do is they come into communities like Mobile, and they set up programs that allow people over a compressed period of time to take the thing that they're working on, that idea, that business, and really accelerate its growth by bringing in great mentors, by bringing proximity and conversations with investors, by working through some of the traditional types of things that help businesses really make that growth. Who's my customer? What's the pain that I'm solving for? What do they need, and how do I make money? And that's a really big one, how do I make money? We'll talk a little bit more with Valencia's story on that one. But it's a great opportunity, and in the Gulf Coast area, based here in Mobile, we have gBETA Gulf Coast. That is our accelerator. We run a cohort every spring and every fall. And traditionally, that's about 5 companies that are going to come in. They're going to be working deep together, connected with their program director here in Mobile, as well as mentors and colleagues across the state to think about how they grow their business. That will end each time we do that, it ends in a showcase. Oftentimes the showcase is what you would think of in a traditional pitch environment. They get an opportunity to be able to share their story. The compelling why. Why should anyone care? That's one of the most important things that a business can figure out. But we will see that event here on November 11th. So if you're sitting there with your calendar, make sure you mark that. Our Innovation Showcase will be November 11th right here in the room that we're sitting in right now. And it'll be a great opportunity to showcase some amazing companies as they make impact here on the Gulf Coast. So Valencia, we're in with you, and your story is so fun, and so our friendship has predated any of the time that you spent with gBETA and all this going back to when you were just like, I'm just this little old person trying to make impact on people. But for those that don't know the story of Valencia Bell in schools, give us the backdrop on how you kind of entered into solving a problem that became a company that now has accelerated change and impacted people literally across the globe.
So that was quite the setup. No, it actually started as a mission. I grew up not very far from here, and when I started, they actually used to segregate students based on the types of houses that they lived in. So they were either woods or bricks. And that was just mind-boggling to me, and redlining by zip codes. And there were a lot of students who were in the area who could not make the score that was necessary on the ACT to be able to attend college, particularly athletes who weren't able to sign. And I was blessed at the age of 12 to have a coach and a family who allowed me to take the ACT very, very early. So I had a 26 on the ACT on my 12th birthday when I was a freshman.
Mind you, that was my final score.
When I was a freshman at Murphy High School, and that just opened up not only 71 D1 offers my freshman year, but opportunities to look at attending college without paying for it, but also making money attending college. So that is where we started. It was a fee-for-service tutoring company, and then from there, someone said, you know, it's like water. Like if you don't package it and bottle it up, you'll have people just literally dying of dehydration. They need it, but they don't know what it is. They don't know how to buy it. They're not sure what to do. And so here comes an accelerator who says, you know, I think you should really look at it. And the funny part, meeting Todd, he really can tell you, like, I didn't know what to do. The first meeting that I had an investor who found out about what I was doing, flew to Mobile from Tennessee. I set up the appointment at Todd's co-working space, and I ran downstairs because he said, okay, well, I'll give you an exit of 10 million. I was like, I don't even know what an exit is. I ran to Todd. I was like, what do I do? I'm in the bathroom. I'm crying. He's like, just calm down. Like, we'll work through it. There wasn't a gBETA for me then. Like, there wasn't anyone to come along to say, this is your product, here are your numbers, this is how you should go about doing these things. And so in retrospect, if there had been a gBETA, I probably would have exited much sooner. So.
And that's really an interesting part of, I think, the traditional journey. So for many people, they enter into this world as an expert in a thing. Usually not an expert in business. And in many ways, that was very much not only your story, but the story of many of your colleagues in the gBETA program.
Absolutely.
I mean, typically we think of the idea of technical founders. I have a technical expertise in a thing. Can I make money off it? I don't know. I think, I hope. I'm going to see, can I push this forward? And that was such an interesting part for you, because for Valencia, a lot of this was what I would consider consulting, okay? Consulting is, it takes me to go out every time to deliver the thing, and there's a bandwidth issue, right?
Absolutely.
I know you don't sleep because I see emails from you at 2 a.m., but you still are bound by 24/7. And so the question that entrepreneurs have to often figure out is, can I scale
Absolutely.
from me doing it and delivering on everything to actually turning this into a business? And so the gBETA program for you really, I think, was a really interesting point at which you found, hey, there is a model, I can turn this into a business and I can move forward. What kind of discovery process did you have to go through that?
So I have to thank Mike Osborne for that. He was my gBETA director at the time, mentor, and it was a really interesting transition going from one to many. Many times people think, oh, okay, this is scalable and I can do it, but you realize very quickly that there's only one you, that you cannot scale without having a true definition of a plan to scale. Because if you have a product that a lot of people are interested in and want, I experienced that in gBETA because we were doing a lot of referral business, and then all of a sudden, after gBETA, people had a way to get in touch with me and a way to buy my product, and we crashed our site. Literally, it was just like overnight. Like all of these people were just like, yes, I need it, I want it in 16 languages. And I wasn't prepared for that, you know. And if it had not been for the advisors that I had in gBETA, I would have scaled too fast, grown too large. And that was one of the things that I was really concerned about, because one of our value propositions is the fact that we raise ACT scores 5 to 10 points and SAT scores 100 to 200 points in a 5-week subscription. And I didn't want to water down the results because I was trying to scale and to grow too fast. So I really do credit gBETA for having those advisors like Nate, not just advisors in gBETA locally in Gulf Coast, but gBETA throughout the system, who said, you know, do you really want to scale in the Latin American market? And if so, what are the languages that you need to translate in? And that's how we ended up translating into Spanish and Portuguese instead of picking Mandarin, Chinese, and some of the other languages that we were receiving a lot of results from.
And I think that's interesting because for many people, that's counterintuitive. Like, well, what do you mean? Of course I want to scale as fast as possible. The problem is, and you identified it, it's the understanding of, do I really know what? Do I really know who? And do I really know how to create the sustainability behind it? And so making sure that you're walking through that journey in a way that won't leave it broke and won't leave that customer with a less than positive opportunity out of it. That's a significant aspect. I want to transition gears briefly, though, because one of the things I think that's really unique in the program is mentorship.
Yes.
So we think a lot of times you will tell somebody you have an idea, and you will never lack somebody willing to give you advice.
Right.
Oftentimes it's not good. oftentimes is not qualified, and oftentimes it's them wanting to tell you things. But the mentorship process, the mentor swarms and other things in gBETA, what was that like for you?
So I will definitely tell people who are interested in gBETA to make the commitment, because it is a commitment. It's a time commitment. The mentor swarm for me, the mentors came from different backgrounds. They expected me to know my business, to have an idea of what I was trying, the problem I was trying to solve. But one of the things that I think that made gBETA stand out against some of the other accelerators I've been is they met me where I was. A lot of people assumed because we were cash positive when we started that I knew a lot more about business than I did. I had not taken any venture capital, so people just assumed that I understood Sam and Tam and Psalm and all of these things. Unfortunately, I had gotten an award from the Wharton Business School, and I had to explain to people that they did a case study on my company. I did not attend Wharton Business School, so you know, it was the mentors that I had literally were like, you know what, let's move back past all of the glam and all of the accolades that she's gotten, and let's meet Valencia where she really, really is. And I am forever grateful for that, because it gave me the ability to woosah a bit and not be so concerned about all of the productivity. Like, there's a difference between being productive and really having a plan in place on how you really want to go to the next level. And so for me, those weeks were a time to step back and say, 5 years from now, where do I see my company? Where do I see my, not a year, not the next quarter, not just being so in the business, but really stepping back and looking at, you know, I'm not the best person to do these things. This is the lane that I need to stay in. These are the people that I need to hire fractionally just to get to the next level. What are our inflection points? What's the number of patients and people that we can take in to be able to get to point A, point B, point C? No one had ever stopped me to actually have me sit back and say, if you put your foot on the gas right here, these KPIs will get you to this level. That didn't happen. People were just like, oh, she's making money, she can make more money, let's pour more gas on the fire. But without gBETA, I wouldn't have been able to really sit back and be in a position right now where I can say, okay, in October of 2026, we quite possibly can be a $54 million ARR company because of the things that we put in place in 2025, which came out of gBETA in 2024.
I don't know if you guys heard that, because she just kind of flippantly threw some numbers around there. 56 million, on track for 56 million in annual recurring revenue. It's incredible. It doesn't happen overnight. And this isn't another, I think, really important part of it. We use the term startup all the time, and for many reasons, people throw it out, and it becomes this like, man, this is just a rocket that shot up out of nowhere. And we still, though, call things like Google and Apple startups. And I think sometimes getting to the language of understanding that there are times that are right for a company to go through an accelerator, and that doesn't always just mean at the very beginning. Because many times you don't know what you don't know. I mean, talked about that.
Absolutely.
You had to find your founder superpower. You had to figure out how do you amplify that. And also, you had to figure out how do you bring people around you that complement and allow you to be the best at what you do, and they can handle other parts of it. So when we walk through this journey, what we see is that there are times that a 10-year-old company becomes an overnight success because the right thing happens at the right time, and there's an inflection point, and all of a sudden you're matching that. So you think about what Valencia is doing. She said it, one-to-ones, one-to-fews, but with the advent of amazing tech platforms, now she's able to do one to the masses. So a lot of times it comes into, does the right thing meet the right opportunity for success to happen? And I think some of what you're talking about is like building that understanding of how do you know when the right time is. You said to push the gas and push the gas right here. So you walk through this journey, you come out of the program, because I think a lot of times it's like, okay, magic happens in the midst of the program, but what does the post-program look like for you?
So I will say that many times people don't understand being in an accelerator, like what's supposed to happen after the accelerator. If you go into the accelerator open and willing to take the feedback, you will literally, I can just speak for myself. I thought that my product was one thing. It turned out to be something completely different. And the term vertical, maybe people don't understand that. So there were people who wanted to buy me, but they didn't want to buy the product. Then there were people who like, I want a product, but I still want access to you. And so for me as a consultant, I had to learn, okay, let me separate Valencia, the brand, from the product that you're buying. So that, if nothing else happened after gBETA, we literally split the product offerings that we had into 3 different verticals. So if you wanted to buy Valencia Bell, the consultant, you paid here. If you wanted to buy the test prep subscription, you paid here. If you were an athlete and you were interested in all that is NCAA clearance and NILs and things like that. And for me, it's very funny because when I talked to Mike, I felt like I split myself into 3 different people. But in all actuality, it was 3 different businesses that were all lumped into one thing, because when I was a consultant, I had to do everything. So then when the international market came in, then there was another split that had to happen because I don't speak 17 languages. So then it was, do I really understand solving the problem at a higher level that I could replicate what we were doing with a language barrier? And that was really the point where we accelerated tremendously, because you're in Queensland, Australia, you're in, Lagos, Nigeria, you're in all of these different places where there are dialects. And, I remember being on Montsamutin and we were doing our first webinar, and I'd never experienced anything like it. They would ask me the question in English, and then they had hundreds of different dialect translators who were translating to all the different people. But the one thing I understood at the end is everybody was like, how do I pay? I need to purchase this. And this was at a time when the Naira, $1 was 1,500 Naira. And that to me is when I realized the impact that I was about to have. And it was just eye-opening for me to step back to say, okay, now I have accelerated on a global scale. Now I need new IP lawyers. Now I need new protections. Now I need protections from the different types of hackers. Like, now I need to make sure there isn't a bootleg version of what I'm doing that someone could open in another country and I'd have no way to protect myself from that. So post-acceleration, I think you grow so much in an accelerator that you do need to have, just food for thought, have a reflection journal for the things that you're learning, because you're learning things so fast. Like, take a good week after the program to say, yes, my business is doing this, but this is what I've learned about myself as a founder. These are my whys. These are the things that I'm going to continue to hold on to because they make me who I am and they make my business what they are. Like, we became a benefit corporation because we always want our mission to be over the monetary impact. But that may not be a path for another company, but we are led by our mission. So the accelerator not only accelerated our business processes, but it made me know that I wanted to continue to do what I was doing as a mission, even if I had to open a nonprofit for people who could not afford to pay the prices that we were charging in the market.
And I think that's really interesting, is the discovery process. You said it very well. There's a lot that happens post-program. So many people think, I go through the process of that 7-8 week program and I am running strong and I'm just ready to lift off. And yeah, there is some of that, but there's also the process of, what did I just learn about myself? What did I just learn about my business? I want to end on value proposition, because there's something I have heard you say multiple times, and it's quite interesting, and I think on its face some people might not understand it. You are different. So every business has a competitor. If you don't know that there's a competitor out there, it's either because you haven't done the research or you're not looking at the alternatives that are out there. You very clearly know who the competitors are in your marketplace, but you recognize your value proposition or your differentiator, and you said it, and I hear it, I speak kid.
Absolutely.
And I love that because, again, I think that's one of the things that is really interesting about the process. Can you share kind of how you walk through the process of understanding that as a value proposition or a differentiator that really sets you up for success?
Absolutely. So when we're talking about test prep, there's 71 million students in the U.S. alone that just blindly SEO search for test prep because someone told them they had to take this scary test called the ACT or the SAT. And very early on, I found out that my buyer was very different than my user. So my buyers sometimes were parents who didn't know that their children had nicely taken their Apple Pay card and bought my services. But when we started to do lots of research about who was using our product, and you could tell very quickly, like, parents who bought it for their kids, when you saw the kids taking the class, you could very easily tell that they were like, I'm not into this, I didn't buy into it. But when you start to speak kid, and like kids were like, okay, I want to earn from what I've learned, and no, I don't want to take out $187,000 in student loans to go undergraduate, and you really started to talk to them about what makes the program work, particularly my niece, who is now turning 16. She was very clear about why she was or was not going to take the class. We found out that if we gave kids what they needed, how they wanted it, like they want no fluff at all. Parents want fluff. Can I just be honest? Parents want the gold coins and and they've been on it for 18 hours. Kids were like, tell me the quickest route to learn what I need to learn, the number of questions I have to get right to get the score that I want, and how that equates to me making money now, not in college, now. Because the students understood there are scholarships that they can get, there are paid internships, and so very quickly, because we spoke kid, we were able to put a college and career readiness piece as a part of our test prep, which differentiated our value proposition, because parents were like, I don't know what you did to my child in those weeks, but now my kid is like talking about the things that I wanted them to talk about that I couldn't talk to. I was like, because we speak kid, you speak parent. You speak, I don't want to pay $500,000 for you to go to an Ivy League school. Kids, normal 12, 13-year-olds, they're not thinking about who's going to pay for it. Of course, my mom and dad are going to pay for it. All I have to do is get in. You know, so it was funny that the kids were like, don't do this. This is boring. This is lame. And we changed the way that we went about doing test prep. And so now it's just bare bones. What do they need? The joke is, do you want to buy the sauce? Parents, buy the sauce. If this was barbecue, kids want the bones. For sure.
And what a difference. And I think that's where the journey is such an important part of the whole process, is learning to discover that. A lot of times I think we jump in thinking we're solving a problem only to be reshaped by the actual end user who says, no, this is what I want you to solve for me. So Valencia, thank you so much for sharing with us tonight your journey, for the opportunity here. And Tatiana, do we want to just open it up for questions or just dialogue? All right, we'll take some questions if there's anybody that has questions about the program. Tatiana is also here. She works for a generator, and she certainly can help in the process. And if you haven't met her, please make sure you do. And also, schedule office hours, because you'll be back tomorrow. That's great. There you go. All right, I got a mic here. Who has a question? Anybody?
No, I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Better now?
Yes.
Hey.
Awesome.
You can hear me. Valencia, thank you for sharing your story with us. That's wonderful. Obviously, I've heard it before, but every time it gets a little richer. But also, it's only been about 4 or 5 weeks since I heard it last, and it seems like it's grown 4 or 5 decades in the past 4 or 5 weeks. So that's awesome.
For sure.
For those people that are interested in being a part of gBETA, can you kind of give the very short version of what makes it the differentiator? I know you went into a long one, but just like if you could just boil it down in like 2 sentences, what would that feel like?
Sure. So one of the things that I think differentiates gBETA from other accelerators is because where you come in at gBETA, like there's no assumption that you are at a certain level. I've been in 6 accelerators, And I probably should have started with gBETA because the other accelerators that I were in, they were like, oh, where's your pitch deck? And it should be at this level. And I was like, well, I don't have an advertising team that works with my pitch deck. I haven't sent it to Madison Avenue. I was like, I've got Google Slides. They're like, what? So gBETA, literally, Nate was one of the people that took my pitch deck and said, okay, take all of this out. Like, I think you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4. One of the other things that I think that gBETA does very differently than other accelerators is the network within Generator is very different than the networks for other accelerators. So the other 5 accelerators that I've been in, their networks were not necessarily local, if that makes any sense. So like for me, it was important to me to have a local touch that also had an international reach. The other accelerators, I was not local to that market. So I was flying in, driving in, and so if I was making impact there, I also had to stay there for a very long time. So like I was in an accelerator in New Orleans, and it required me to be in New Orleans for 12 weeks. This is not a 12-week accelerator. So if you think about relocating to another place, it's right here. So you have the advantage of that. But the network that I met within gBETA, those people are still giving me mentorship even now, even though gBETA has been gone many, many months from there. I can pick up the phone, and I mean, literally, like everybody's experiences, you get out of gBETA what you put into it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you were chosen, take the opportunity to meet all of the advisors that come in, not just locally, but nationally, internationally, but gBETA starts you, when you talk about accelerating, you sometimes have to take a step backward to move forward. I think gBETA is very, very skilled in helping entrepreneurs step back for a second and say, not this, not now, when is it good for you? And that was something I didn't get in the other accelerators. I'm just being very honest. When you always get 100% Valencia. The other accelerators were very much like, okay, well, when will you hit 20 million ARR? It's like, wow, can I hit 1 million ARR first, But they were accelerating on a much higher scale than I had no clue. Like, I'm not one of those business people that came with a business background that got into the accelerator to go from 1 million to 20 million ARR. I literally was looking for someone to help me get my foundation where it needed to be, make sure that my product was right, make sure that my pricing was where it needed to be. That I got all of that from gBETA.
I'll say 2 quick things to Scott that I think are really interesting and useful about the gBETA program in comparison to my other things. One, you can run a startup by yourself. You can. There's something, though, about a cohort program that, just like a running program, if you go out and you run on your own, it's one thing. If you go out and run with a group of colleagues, friends, people that are keeping pace, you're driven to excel because you're watching them. So that's something I think that's really important about an accelerator program, is having that cohort or that colleagues to do that. The other thing too is, I think what's very special about the gBETA program is there is no equity dilution. So yes, you're not getting an investment, but nobody's taking away from your company. They're not taking the equity right now. That's really important oftentimes, because at the early stage of a business, you don't actually know what you have. You're not ready to do that yet. And when you look at raising capital, you're in a situation, if you give something away too early before you actually know what you're doing, then it may be that you've got the wrong investor and you've got the wrong path forward. And so being able to have a free accelerator, and by free it means we pour thousands and thousands of dollars into you, and we give you technical support to help your business grow. I think that's one of the things that to me was always attractive when we first met with Generator and started talking through that process.
Yeah, I want to say something about that. So to have $100,000 given to you for 7% of your company when you don't know what your company is worth, Many times people come into accelerators for that, like, oh, someone gave me $100,000, and then at the end of it, you then realize, wow, that just valuated my company here. I probably should have done some independent valuation before I accepted that. So non-dilutive is good, and gBETA is non-dilutive. So it's worth it. For those of you, I didn't even know what that term meant when I started, but not giving up part of your company to find out how good your company is and what it's doing and what it's worth is an invaluable process. And if you are chosen, take advantage of that and ask people to help you with your valuation so that when you come out of the accelerator, you are standing 10 toes down on the ground like, I know my company is worth this. So the next person that comes along, you don't take a valuation that really is not appropriate for what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Valencia. What we'll do now is get rid of the formality, and if you have questions, you can just come in and ask her and wander around. But thanks so much, Valencia.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Tatiana. Appreciate
Thank
everybody
you.
being here for it. But Valencia is here, so ask the questions that maybe aren't microphone questions that you want to find out and get to know more. Certainly do the same thing with Tatiana. She can help you understand the program and walk through that process. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.